The Weekly Mac is here, and today we're talking about our specialty, the language. Our first guest is a real phenomenon. Fernando de Castro speaks 16 languages, can you believe it? A beautiful smile, a great voice, and a breathtaking performing. This is Gigi MacFarlane's formula. Once you see her, you like her. And Matthew and Marc Broderick will show us the funniest words in each language. All these topics and many more in The Weekly Mac, hosted by Marcella Topor.
Welcome to The Weekly Mac. Our main subject today is languages. This is an important subject for us since it is precisely the aim of our show, to make it easier for you to learn English. And our first guest shows that language learning doesn't have to be a problem. He speaks no less than 16 languages. Let's have a look at the glossary with some of the keywords that will appear in the interview, and then we'll get to know him better.
We start today's glossary not with a word, but with an expression, from scratch. If you do something from scratch, it means you do it from the very beginning, without making use of anything that you have done before. The second word is a verb very related to language, to swear. If someone swears, they use language that is considered to be rude or offensive, usually because they are angry. Related to swearing, we find the slang. It consists of very informal words and idioms, normally not used in formal situations and sometimes containing vulgar vocabulary. The slang is also the specialized vocabulary and idioms of those in the same work or who have the same interests. And the last word of this glossary is gimmick. A gimmick is an unusual and unnecessary feature or action whose purpose is to attract attention or to increase appeal.
Most Catalans speak two languages fluently, Catalan and Spanish. In addition, a third of them also speak English. This is data from a 2014 survey on language uses in Catalonia, and it's not bad at all. But can you imagine that we could speak 16 languages? There's a word for that, and it's called hyper-polyglot. It refers to people who study and learn large numbers of languages. Well, that's precisely the case with our guest today, Fernando de Castro. Welcome to the Weekly Mac.
Thank you.
Well, I'm very impressed. Like everybody else, I suppose 16 languages. How come?
Okay, love in my case is a passion. So I started when I was, maybe when I was 12 at school. English was compulsory, like everywhere else. I come from the northwest of Spain, where I have two languages, Spanish and Galician. And then it was my, for personal motivation, I started studying German when I was 15. And then it became kind of addictive. Then Russian, Czech. I've studied most of the languages on my own. So buying courses, back then they were with tapes. Now you have CDs. I mean, it doesn't compare all the means you have nowadays to study languages. Now with the internet, of course, back in the 90s, everything was quite simple. It was difficult to get a newspaper in a foreign language. So now it's much easier in terms of material.
But what's your secret for learning so many languages and so quickly?
I don't know, I guess it's dedication. I mean, of course, you can learn languages much more quickly if you're living in that country. If you're living in your own country, then you need lots of dedication. As a friend of mine used to say, it's like loving somebody, falling in love. You need to dedicate lots of time. But as long as you like it, it's not a sacrifice. So it's in my case, it's a hobby.
Okay. Well, I have a little test for you, actually. I would like you to say the name of one of the languages you speak. I would like you to translate the word welcome into a few languages.
Okay, I'll try.
All right, first of all, let's start with French. How do you say welcome?
Bienvenue.
Bienvenue. German?
Willkommen, herzlich willkommen.
Okay. What about Czech?
Vítame vás.
Wow. Greek?
Καλώς ήρθατε.
Portuguese?
Bem-vindo.
Polish?
Witam.
Slovenian?
Dobrodošli.
Serbo-Croatian?
Dobrodošli.
Russian?
Добро пожаловать.
Wow. Okay, we're not done. We have just a few more. What about Indonesian?
Selamat datang.
Selamat datang. Okay. Hungarian?
Üdvözlöm.
Right. Galician?
Bem-vindos.
Danish?
Welcome.
Welcome, like in English.
Exactly.
Easy one. Swedish?
Välkommen.
Welcome. And last but not least, Romanian.
I'm afraid I can't. I can tell you that in Romanian. What's the Romanian for welcome?
Well, bine ați venit.
Okay.
Okay, it's like bine, it means good. Bine ați eu vingut. Be eu vingut would be the literal translation.
Okay, like good that you came.
Exactly. Good
Okay.
that it came. Well, we are very pleased to have you here, and I must say, I mean, I'm very, very impressed. I suppose, like our viewers as well. Let's continue. Of all these languages that you speak, 16 languages, which one has been the most difficult for you to learn, and the easiest as well?
Okay, the most difficult one probably was Hungarian, because no matter how many languages you speak, you start like from scratch. Because if you speak one Slavic language, of course the next one will be easier because they share vocabulary, the grammar is similar. Or if you speak French, of course Italian, Catalan will be easier. But Hungarian, it's not that it's completely isolated, but it's a language of Asian origin, only related to Finnish, Estonian, and some languages in Central Asia. So when you start, it's like you're a little child, and you start, from zero, and also the grammar is quite complicated.
I see. So how long did it take you to learn Hungarian?
I think about a year.
A year,
Yeah.
only a year.
Yeah.
There are people who spend years and years and years learning English. And then they say, oh, I know, I'm like very shy when it comes to conversation. So what would you tell them?
It's a lot of hard work, because I'm a teacher myself, and I see that actually very few people have this, real dedication. They think just, going to a class once a week will do miracles. But as long as living in the country, where the language is spoken, it requires lots of work. And then, of course, the more you work, you can see the results. You have to become kind of obsessed with it. That would be my advice. You're in the street, you try to translate.
When you said it's like learning a language is like falling in love.
Exactly, fall in love. All your thoughts are about that person, so you try. Everything revolves around that.
Oh, okay. So the most difficult has been Hungarian. What about the easiest one?
The easiest. Okay, I don't know, maybe Italian or French, because of being related to my mother tongue, to Spanish, probably.
All right. Well, in that case, you should try Romanian. It's also a Romance language.
Yes, I will do the next challenge.
And I'm sure it will take you not very long.
I'll try by the end of the interview, right?
Okay. Well, you can try. I can give you some tips. What do you think? What would you say about English as a language? Have you found it especially difficult to learn? And what tips would you give learners of English?
I would say that as Spanish or Catalan speakers, we are quite lucky, because at least half of the vocabulary is comes from Latin, from French actually. So we can't imagine how lucky we are. I mean, if a Chinese or an Arab studying English, it's much more difficult for them. So at least for us, many words such as, family, example, I mean, they're identical in Catalan and English, for example. I think English is very easy, very simple to start with. But, the more you want to deepen the study, the more difficult it gets. I think, it requires dedication like any other language.
Okay,
and we are lucky nowadays because I would say that you should do, whatever you enjoy doing, you should try to do it in English. Because people normally say you should read. I mean, somebody who never reads, there is no point in reading. But for example, if you like watching series, then you should watch them in English. You should change the settings on your mobile phone. And another piece of advice, for example, I don't have a smartphone, and honestly, you end up gaining so much time.
Why don't you have a smartphone? Why have you taken this
first,
decision?
Because I don't like them. Because I like communication. I think they're actually a hindrance for communication rather than a tool. But also because you end up gaining so much time that you can use it for other, productive things.
Okay, so you don't use WhatsApp and all these
I don't know.
modern...
I know it makes me kind of alien, but really it pays off.
And if you want to communicate with someone, or what
I call them.
You call them or send them like
exactly.
messages,
People have stopped to
messages.
call each other, and I think it's a bit sad. Communication is, it's paying its toll.
How many languages do you practice on a regular basis?
This is very difficult actually, so not that many. So I try to read now. The internet makes it much easier because you can have virtually any newspaper, any TV channel, but you can say like rare languages, such as Slovenian, they're more difficult to practice. But I try to at least read, the internet. I also translate literature, so this is also a way, to be exposed and in contact with a language.
You said before that you are a language teacher. Which languages do you teach?
Now at the moment I'm teaching English, German, Spanish for foreigners, and Indonesian, but it varies, it depends.
Wow. Do you have a lot of students who want to learn Indonesian?
Not that many, for different reasons. Some of them because they like traveling to the country, or because they work with tour. I used to be a guide until a few months ago, so I used to travel with groups from Indonesia and Singapore, so that was the chance actually to practice the language every day.
Okay, and one question I'm quite curious about is actually, do you think that it is important when you learn a language and to speak a language very well? Is it important to know the culture of the country in this case as well?
Absolutely, it helps you also to understand. I mean, it goes in both ways. The language helps you to understand the culture, and the culture helps you to understand the language, because languages are like, you could say, like natural, living beings that arise somewhere and, for a reason. So they actually show a lot about the culture, the expressions they use. So of course, also because they're spoken, by real people, with feelings.
Of course. Well, I've got here a note which says that Ken Hale, a linguist from Massachusetts Institute of Technology, the famous MIT, who happens to know no less than 50 languages, he said once that he could speak only 3 languages and could merely talk in others. What do you think about that, and what's your case?
Yeah, people normally expect like speaking a language or saying that you know a language means that you master it. I don't even master my own language. I mean, my mother tongue is Spanish, and of course you never stop learning new words, new expressions, because there is a whole, behind the language there is culture, as you said. And I mean, you need to know the culture too to understand the language. So this,
it's crucial,
I remember when I was
important.
studying Hungarian in Munich years ago, there was a nice test written by a Hungarian writer saying, trying to exhaust, to learn a language completely is like emptying the sea with a shell. So it's the same metaphor, it's something huge.
Well, and in a few seconds we continue talking with Fernando de Castro about language, but now we'd like to welcome our next collaborator, Malcolm Otero. We'll talk about language and many other things. Stay tuned.
Is our language impoverishing? Patricia Scalona and Donna Katurnan will probably argue on that question.
Well, Ludwig Wittgenstein, a language philosopher, once wrote, "The limits of my language means the limits of my world." And it is possible that by stating this, he wanted to say that without language, there is no understanding or interpretation of the world. In this sense, the world is also language itself. Of course, this is just a possible rendition of Wittgenstein's words. Probably our new collaborator will come up with more ideas. And we've got here Malcolm Otero. Welcome.
Thank you.
What's your relationship with Wittgenstein?
Great indeed. I had drinks with him last Saturday, and all I can say is he's still dead.
Oh, that's reassuring to know. Yeah, excellent. Well, what interesting facts, Malcolm, have you brought us about language today?
Well, let's start with an easy question. Do you know how many languages are spoken in the world?
I don't know, maybe about 5,000?
No one knows exactly, but there's an estimated figure about 7,000 languages in the world. That's the good news. The bad news is only 600 of them are spoken by more than 100,000 people. So, what does it mean? It means that a lot of these languages are going to disappear in the midterm.
Wow, that's a shame.
That's a shame. That's a shame indeed. And back to Wittgenstein again, a lot of words are going to disappear because each language has a specific way to, a specific approach to the objects and to the reality. For instance, let's start with an easy term, with an easy word. I love you. I love you, it looks like an easy sentence you can say, but in Spanish we say te quiero, which is like I want you, which is like it denotes carnality. In Catalan we say t'estimo, which is something like I admire you, which is not very sexy. In Italian, for instance, they say ti amo, but they also have the expression ti voglio bene, which is like the Spanish, but in the good way. So the point is, in my experience, saying ti amo, eu ci amo, or nakupenda, which is my favorite, which is in Swahili, I love you in Swahili, it's not very difficult to say, but for me, it's very difficult to say te estimo or te quiero. What do you think about it?
I just like nakupenda. What about you? Did you know this one?
No, not at all. No.
But you're very right about these two words, no? That we are supposed to use or use a lot every day, no? They have so different connotations in the languages you mentioned. It's very interesting.
For instance, you know, I had my vacations on Calafell, which is a village 60 kilometers from Barcelona, and I used to talk to the foreign girls, and I said, I love you every 5 minutes. And now you get older and saying te quiero is very much difficult. But let's go on. Do you know
Of course.
Do you know which language has the fewest speakers in the world? No, at least, sorry, yeah.
I'm afraid I don't.
You don't.
I know, because
Okay.
many are on the verge of disappearing.
Yeah, last time I checked, it means now, there are only 3 languages with one
speaker
One
left.
speaker. And I have to read them because it's Taushiro, which is the language spoken by Pinchi ethnic group of Peru, Caixana, from the tribe, the same name in Brazil, and Tanema. It's a native of Vanikoro Island. As you know, it's part of the Solomon Islands.
Of course we know, yes.
So-
Well, so one speaker, you said.
One speaker. So
Really?
in the event that a fatality has happened in the last few days, one of those languages have already disappeared.
Exactly, thousands of years of history, culture, all that dies.
And a way of understanding a reality. Because I'm not talking about the difficulty of translating. For example, you know, it's very difficult to translate saudade or de unido. It's very difficult to translate.
Do ni do, exactly.
Yeah, it's very difficult. If you try to explain, you have a lot of possibilities.
How do you say do ni do in English, by the way? It's
It
quite
depends on the
complicated.
context. Sometimes we say, my goodness,
Depends on the context,
Depending
no?
on the context, yeah.
or the hell, it
Yes.
depends, on your mood.
Of
But
course.
more than that, for instance, Catalan, it's famous because it has some difficulty in getting the proper urban slang tone, you know, for translators. It's very difficult. Even we have to borrow the insults from Spanish, and it's quite difficult. So does it happen with other languages, and how do you solve it?
But I think this also has to do, sometimes some languages, you know, are more conservative in terms of, for example, the Slavic languages in general are quite prudish. I mean, for
you're
example,
right.
in Spanish, I think is one extreme. I mean, you can hear some words, you know, coming from anybody, you know, from a child, from a woman, in the sense that in some cultures, for example, in Russia and in Czech, a woman, I mean, that would be a really bad thing to hear really hard swear words coming from a woman, for example. That's kind of taboo. Or, for example, let alone, you know, said by a university professor. In Spain, I think it's one extreme where people swear so much. And I'm quite against it because I think swear words have a function. And I hate it when I see that people swear like every minute in Spanish. I mean, apart from the fact that I think it's very vulgar, I think they lose the meaning because a swear word is supposed to be used when you're really angry, when you really want, you know, to express that feeling. And if every second word, you know, is joder, I think it loses its purpose. So, and some languages don't use, or how, for example, Indonesian is a very traditional culture, you know, they're very religious. It doesn't matter which religion, most of them are Muslim, but there are many Christians, Buddhists. And, you know, swear words are kind of basic, it's like they don't exist. I mean, they would never use them because politeness is, you never lose your temper, that's the thing. So you cannot use any swear word.
Talking about the swearing, do you know how to say, for instance, shit in the 16 languages you speak?
That's
In
a
fact, I
good
think-
question.
Because like, yeah, I mean, the word shit itself, yeah, but in some languages you hardly ever, in fact, I think they have difficulties when translate literature or films. For example, I'm thinking of Indonesian, right? A very conservative language, because they don't have the word. They avoid it, you know, by all means.
Totally.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
So sometimes it sounds even artificial, to translate shit in those contexts where they would never use them themselves.
in Catalan we have thousands of ways of saying shit. So,
Yeah.
well, another interesting thing talking about languages is the false friends. I
Yes.
love
Absolutely, yeah.
part of constipated, which is,
Yes.
is completely different
It's a classic.
from English to Catalan. But there's a story I love of author from Barcelona who went to Portugal for promoting the book, and the local writer said, "Your novel is espantosa, espantosa, espantosa," and it was an awkward situation because espantoso means like amazing, and I think like exquisito means the other way around,
Exactly,
right?
means
It's
strange,
like,
odd, yeah.
Odd. And there's other words like this. I mean, in a plane, I heard sometimes, "Am I molesting you?" So, and with the languages you speak, there's another word I love in Swahili again, which is kaka. We're talking about shit.
Really?
Kaka means brother. So
Okay.
my kaka.
Also in Indonesian, yeah, old brother is kakak.
Oh, look.
Yeah.
So
a coincidence.
do you know any other false friend in the languages you speak?
False friends, you normally have them in languages which are related to each other. So that's why when you start learning a language which is related to another one you speak, this is a double-edged sword, because on one side it makes it faster for you, but on the other hand it makes it difficult because you are going to be confusing so many words. For example, among Slavic languages there are lots of them. A word in one language means difficult, in another word means pregnant. For a woman.
Could be a synonym.
Yeah, it's a difficult situation, yeah. Or one word that means a nice smell, and the other one is like stinking. So this happens a lot, among languages that are related, in the same way as, it happens among, Spanish, Italian, these languages.
Yes, true. Other examples of false friend, maybe, like in Catalan, Spanish, and English. A classic is embarrassed, no?
Yeah,
Embarrassed,
I love
no?
that.
Embarazada, embarazada, of course. Exit.
Exit, I love it. Exit
Yes.
and exit and exit is the same of carpet.
Success too.
Yes,
yeah.
I success.
Yes, carpet.
Carpet is
Carpeta,
another,
exactly.
casualty, casualty.
Library.
Library. So it's I mean, I work with books, and it's very common when
It's a very
people
common,
talking
yeah.
about bookshops or bookstores and saying library. And
Lecture, no?
lecture.
As well.
Yes.
sensitive.
Exactly.
That's a very, very common mistake when
Yes.
you're learning English, right?
Exactly. When I used to be a teacher as well, and this was a classic, no? Sensible and sensitive.
Yes.
No? Mistaking these two.
They're often mistaken.
Yeah. Attend, or people paying attention instead of going to a place or being a place. Or there's a lot. It's funny. We can like make another languages only with the false friends, no?
What's the reaction of people when they realize that we actually speak their own language?
It's funny
How do
because in
they
Indonesia
react?
I've had the experience of somebody asking me, "Are you Indonesian?" Which I think is obvious I'm not, but
So
you never
Indonesian is
know.
as good as that?
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's quite easy to pronounce. It's very similar to our languages.
Actually, pronunciation is one of the parts that people find most difficult about learning a new
Because your
language.
father is a kind of expiry date. Once I read in a book that each task, each skill of the language has an expiry date. And the earliest one is pronunciation. So apparently this expires at the age of 7. So any language you learn by the age of 7, you can have like native accent. And if you start it after this age, your mother tongue will be so important, so strong, that it will leave its mark.
Yeah, you're right. You can, if there's a Spanish in a plane and you hear jafacit, you can this
Exactly.
jafacit is in Spanish, right?
Exactly.
It's in Spaniard.
Well, I have one question for you. Do you know how many languages are spoken in South Africa?
I don't. How many?
Well, I'm asking that, and do you, Malcolm?
No.
Well, I'm just asking that. It turns out that at least 19 languages are spoken there, 11 of which are official. And I'm telling you this because we're going to South Africa right now.
Good.
Yes. I mean, we're going to our next section, which is called e-speakers. South Africa is a vast nation with widely varying landscapes as well as an equally diverse population. Its pluralistic makeup is reflected in the Constitution's recognition of 11 official languages. It has the strongest economy in Africa and is an influential player in African politics. Well, let's learn a bit more of this destination, rich in culture, fauna and flora and history, hand in hand with Praline Hudson.
Hello, my name is Praline Hudson. I'm from Durban, South Africa. I've been living in Spain for the last 24 years and I work as a teacher. South Africa has a very varied landscape because we have also very varied climate because of the size. So for example, where I'm from, which is Durban and the Natal region, we have a subtropical climate. So you have lots of forests, lots of green, lots of vegetation, beautiful subtropical plants. In the south part of South Africa, the southernmost tip is the Cape region, which is Mediterranean climate. So you'll find that the winters are quite cold, the summers are warm, and the vegetation as well is very varied. And then the central part of South Africa is desert. We have the Great Karoo, which is all desert region. And there as well, you have very typical fauna. And of course, South Africa has all of the African animals, so lots of game reserves. And there as well, you have savannas, you have plains. So yes, very varied. Mountainous regions as well in Natal with the Drakensberg. And the Cape as well has the famous Table Mountain region. Everybody knows Cape Town. Cape Town is very touristic. I think you can't miss Durban either because I'm from Durban and it's multi-ethnic. In the Natal and the Durban area, you have amazing beaches, kilometers and kilometers of beaches. It's got the subtropical climate, so you have beautiful palm trees and lovely vegetation. You have lots of natural parks. And like I say, with the ethnic mix, you have all the beautiful beads, you have all the different colors, you have all the different spices. So yeah, it's varied. It's surf city as well. So even if you want to surf and do lovely sports, you can do that in Durban. So Durban cannot be missed. Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela, who was the first democratically elected president of South Africa. He is a figure to be recognized for sure as a world figure for his fight for freedom, for human rights, for his quest against breaking down the apartheid in South Africa. He gave up his life basically for that. He spent almost 3 decades in prison. He's an example for the South Africans because he was also a unifying force. South African cuisine is dominated by meat. Bobotie is a meat-based dish. It's made of minced meat, mutton and pork. It's got excellent spices like cinnamon and cardamom, a little bit of curry to give it that little bit of tang. You basically make your meat sauce based with the mince base, and then you top it with cheese and egg sauce, and stick it in the oven and enjoy. South Africans, we love laughing at ourselves. South Africa, because it is such a politically young nation, we have no problem laughing about politics, and actually a lot of the jokes are about politics. We're also a country which laugh a lot about race. Because it is also quite young in terms of race, because now up until just almost 24 years ago, race was part of our DNA, so everybody just lived with that. Quite unique in South Africa is what we used to call in the day the Coon Carnival, which is actually now the Cape Minstrel Carnival. But of course I'm from Durban, so I'm going to talk about the Durban July Handicap, because you don't quite expect that in Africa, but it is a huge showcase of thoroughbred horses. So it's a horse racing event, and it is a mix between horse racing and haute couture. So it's the place to be seen, and it's a place to basically bet on your horses, look beautiful, and have fun.
The Weekly Mag focuses today on language, and our guest is a man capable of speaking no less than 16 different languages. His name is Fernando de Castro, and before the ad break, we were talking to him and our new collaborator, Malcolm Otero. So, we continue the conversation about languages. Let's talk about musicality. In terms of the way that language sounds, which one would you say is your favorite?
Oh, difficult thing. Probably French. And I think it depends on what people say, you know, that makes it more harmonic, right, and nicer. But I think French is a very, also Polish, very melodic languages, Portuguese, of course Brazilian Portuguese with samba in the background, you know.
Okay,
it's very musical.
interesting.
Yeah, in fact, you know, there's a saying that every language it's good for something. I mean, it said that English is good for music, French is good for poetry, and Spanish is good for God, for church. So it's quite interesting. There's a saying of Charles V, and I have the quote here, that was an emperor, and he said, "I speak Spanish to God, Italian to women, French to men, and German to my horse."
Funny one.
Yeah. Well, of course, this is also based on many stereotypes, you know, and I don't like when people think that language is like limited, like some people are surprised that there is music in a language other than English, you know, because this means it's becoming poorer, you know, when everything, in fact, that's why languages are disappearing, because people feel ashamed of their own language, or they think the language is not suitable for something. I think this is not a good commonplace, because I think languages are good for everything. You can say absolutely everything in any language, because we're humans and, you know, we all feel the same, and language has the same purpose for everybody.
And you know, horses don't speak.
Exactly.
Well, I'm curious how useful has been for you to speak 16 languages in terms of job opportunities?
In fact, this is the last thing I've ever thought of, you know, the utility of languages. Because I've also heard many times, and it used to get on my nerves when people ask me, what's the purpose of learning this? Because I would always ask you, what's the purpose of, you know, watching a film or going to a football match? I mean, many people find it difficult to understand that it's just a pleasure to study something you enjoy, you know. And honestly, I've never thought of any practical or something which could be rewarded in terms of money. But of course, you know, you have more chances. But in fact, really, it's the last factor, you know, I've ever thought of. It's just a pleasure, and I enjoyed studying them in the same way somebody enjoys, you know, doing any hobby you have.
Okay, and I think it's time for our mystery questions. We've got Marc Broderick. He's in charge of these. Where is he?
Yes,
Hello, Marc.
here.
In charge of the famous questions. Are you
I
ready?
have 16 questions in 16 different languages, including Klingon and Elvish. No, no,
Okay, I'm supposed to open it.
Yeah, just wait a second, I'll explain. Do you want to take one as well, Malcolm? There you go.
I don't know if to say yes.
It's okay, just try it. All right, so open it up, have a look inside. It's in English, I'm kidding about the other languages.
Malcolm, you can't open it yet.
You gotta wait. It's okay, you can read and start thinking about your answer. All right, do you want to read it out?
What's your infallible flirting gimmick?
Remember, you need to be honest.
Which language do you flirt in?
Depending on
It depends, no?
Depending on the objective.
Ah, okay, fair enough. So, answer the question.
I think I try something different every time.
Give me an example. I'm not going to pretend I'm the person walking up to you in the bar, okay? I don't know.
Okay.
I think he just needs some tips and tricks to use them later.
Okay, I don't have any tips or tricks, so you gotta tell us one.
Okay, I don't know what to tell you.
An icebreaker, exactly.
I'll just walk up to whoever I'm interested in and say whatever
Just
crosses
break
my
the
mind.
ice.
Yeah. I hate, you know, having like standard, you know, formulas for anything. So just I myself.
But you don't follow this kind of PUA manuals. It's called Pick-up Artist Manual.
I know. Yeah. I mean, there's a general principle in my life. You know, I'm just spontaneous, and I try every time. Because it depends, you know, who you have in front of you.
And it works usually.
Not always. Yeah. But if it did, I would always say, that it doesn't always work. You know.
Okay.
And you, Malcolm?
Good enough for you, Marc? Are you satisfied? Are you satisfied with the answer?
Not really, no. But we'll have a talk backstage. You'll have to give me like 16 different chat-up lines, so that I have a chance. 16 different people. Play the numbers game. All right.
Mine says, what would you like your epitaph to be? So it's quite easy. I told you I was ill.
Very good, very good.
Good,
very,
good,
very
very
smart, very
spontaneous.
smart. Yeah. Well done, Malcolm. You'll be a good addition here.
Okay. Well, and Malcolm, I think we've got a final test for Fernando.
Yeah, because we started with the word welcome, and now I think I'm going to ask you to say see you later in all these languages I have here. The first in German,
Bis später.
Czech,
Widzimy się skoro.
Greek,
Talemy síndoma.
Portuguese,
Até logo.
Polish,
Widzimy się bowiem.
Slovenian,
Adio.
Serbo-Croatian,
Vidimo se.
Russian,
До скорой встречи.
Indonesian,
It's funny because they have two words to say goodbye, depending on whether you leave or you stay. So they say selamat jalan for the one who's leaving, like have a good walk home, and the other one says like stay well. But they don't have something specific like see you later.
okay, Hungarian,
Szia,
Galician.
a te pronto.
Good, good.
Well, anyway, aren't you guys impressed?
Yeah,
Extremely.
I want to be you when I'm old. Yeah.
When you're older.
You're older.
Because how many languages do you guys speak?
-1.
5. Three pretty well, and 2 I have there more or less. Yeah.
Okay,
4.
4. We can't beat you.
We're losers.
Who can beat you anyway? It's I guess you're used to people saying telling you this all the time.
Yeah, but it's a matter of effort. You know, I hate it when people say something
Time.
about being gifted. Yeah, it's a question of effort, time. It's not a sacrifice because if you like something, you enjoy it.
You have
But it's
children?
No, I don't.
Now I understand.
So this is the gimmick, the tactic. Something is missing, right?
Well, anyway, we need to
working.
conclude the interview here. Fernando, thank you so much for coming today. Malcolm,
pleasure.
it's been a pleasure. See you next time. And Mark, see you in a few minutes.
Absolutely.
Well, today, Helen Armstrong tips are very special. Our teacher at International House Barcelona reviews the main abbreviations and expressions used in English to communicate through WhatsApp. Check it out.
Hi everyone. With the emergence of smartphones, this has led to new ways of expression. So today we're going to learn a few of the most common ones. So let's start with THX or THNX, thanks. And in response you say YW, you're welcome. Another common acronym is BTW, which means by the way. So this is used to introduce a less important topic to conversation. And imagine your boss sends you a message saying you need to do a report ASAP, as soon as possible. And you say, NP, no problem. But this means you have to cancel a night out with your friends because you'll be working all night. And they're a bit angry and they say, WTF? What the fuck? It's a little bit vulgar, but it's very, very popular. So you've finally finished your report. So you can now go out with your friends tonight, which obviously means tonight. And if you make a funny joke, your friends can reply saying, LOL, lol. They are laughing out loud. And you can finish the whole conversation with XOXO, which means hugs and kisses. So kisses, X, hugs, O. Okay, thanks, bye.
In just a few minutes, Gigi MacFarlane sings for us on our stage. If you miss her, you'll regret it.
French writer and pilot Antoine de Saint-Exupéry said, "Language is the source of misunderstandings," and this is going to be especially true in the next few minutes of our show. Our face-off today is about an issue that concerns many linguists and language teachers as they listen to the talk of the new generations. Is our language impoverishing or is it just evolving? To help clarify this issue, we are being joined today by an editor and an English teacher, Patricia Scalona and Donna Katirnan. Welcome.
Thank you.
So what's your position on this matter?
Well, I feel to be forced to pick one of those two options, I'd definitely have to go with language is impoverishing. I feel that the two most prominent currencies of language would be the written word and the spoken word. And I believe in recent years they've proved to be significantly devalued by society, that, yeah, there might be very little hope for us. It might be George Orwell's 1984, albeit 32 years late. But yeah, I feel that's might be where we're headed with language.
Okay, and you, Patricia?
What's that chaos and destruction that you're talking about? Mine is, my position is that language is evolving, obviously. It's as it's always done. It's not new that language, like we speak languages that evolved from other languages. Catalan, Spanish, Italian, all those Roman languages evolved from Latin, and without that evolution or that destruction of the language, as was qualified at some point or other during history, of course, they wouldn't exist today. So that's why I'm saying that it's evolving.
I would comfortably rephrase impoverishing into the word devolving, which is another thing. I mean, you talked about going through the Romans there, and society certainly evolved to that point, and then it devolved for about 600 or 700 years. So my point is that, yeah, we're definitely on a downward sloping arc in terms of the integrity and the value of language.
Integrity and value of language. What are you talking about exactly?
The integrity and value of language. Okay, so for instance, like I said at the start, the most validated currency of language, we could say, would be the written word, yeah?
Uh-huh.
The written word. Less people are reading now than ever before, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a maddening thing because book sales are higher than they've ever been before, but tests show in high schools and things all over the world, reading levels are down.
I beg to disagree with that.
Pardon?
Mm-hmm. I beg to disagree with that. But
Let's listen to what Patricia says, because she's an editor, so she deals with books. She should know.
I mean, I do know that, you know, it's not true that we're reading less and less. We're reading maybe less books, you can say that, but we're reading a lot on the internet. We're reading a lot of articles. We're playing with language.
That would be my point exactly.
But that's the whole point of language. It has to adapt to new situations.
Would you say reading a blog is not a devolution from, like, most of the reading population reading novels or newspapers?
Why should it be?
Well, it depends
because
on...
it just is. It's a
blog?
less valid article of language.
Because it's a 2-year-old answer. First, I mean, it's not because it just is.
Because it's a 2-year-old answer. I didn't just say because it just is. I said it's because it's a less valuable article of language. It
Why?
clearly is.
Says you.
Because it says me, yeah, exactly. Formerly, like, the person who would publish the written word would be a journalist or an author.
It can be a blog about, I don't know, about literature.
Yes, it could. But it could be written by a drastically underqualified person, which it often is.
Not.
Or not, yeah, but very few of them are.
Okay. So
The vast majority of blogs are personal endeavors by people with no qualification in doing such a thing.
right.
Am I wrong in this?
No, yeah, you are. So you're talking about
I beg to disagree on that.
Written word is the, I don't know, the constant, the mark of language, you know, the quality of language.
And spoken word. I also said the spoken word.
The spoken word. Okay, let's go with that. So let's talk about your bard, you know, the biggest author of all time in English. Shakespeare, of course. He invented more than 1,700 words. He made out those words.
Several hundred years ago.
So what? Why can't it happen now?
Because it's not happening now.
So it is happening now.
The last addition to the dictionary was LOL.
LOL
that was legitimately added to the dictionary as a verb. You're going to compare that to Shakespeare?
I am comparing that to Shakespeare.
I thought you were a book editor.
Because that exactly, I am a book editor, and I'm comparing that to Shakespeare precisely
You
because
write books
of that.
with emojis?
I could. Yeah, actually I did write one, and it has a lot of emojis as well.
And you don't consider that a devolution of language?
Oh, shut up already. Let me do my
No,
make my
that's a
argument.
2-year-old's answer.
No, shut up already is like an order, not a 2 years argument.
4 years old, whatever. Okay, let's not pick and choose.
Okay, actually, this is a good point. Abbreviations like ACAP. What do you think about that? So, Donica, in your opinion, that's not useful at all.
It's useful if you need to get something done ASAP, but if you want to sit down and clarify something and, like, really tell a story with language, which is why language is there, why we evolved it, so we'd be able to tell stories and learn from our past and present and each other. So if you need something like a coffee ASAP and you happen to have a personal assistant, I mean, yeah, it's convenient, it's good. I don't necessarily think I would approve of like a great writer using it in a text unless he happened to be quoting somebody who's in a hurry.
So you never use abbreviations such as
No, I don't.
BTW, by the way?
No.
Okay, so what are the two words that define the two sides of a boat in English?
Of a boat,
Of a boat, of a ship.
port and starboard.
Those are abbreviations. Port, out, I can't remember what else, and those are abbreviations that came into language, into the English language, because precisely they were words that you could read and they were easy to identify, instead of the longer version of it. And going back to Shakespeare, what he did was actually transform all sorts of words into other sorts of words, like
Hundreds of years ago.
No, it doesn't matter. I mean,
Yes, it does.
That's precisely like English.
We're talking
is
about
perfect.
now.
English is
That's what the
perfect
debate's
for that.
about.
Shut up. English is
Oh my
perfect.
God. This is a face-off.
4, 5, 6-year-old answer, whatever you want to call it.
Please don't
sideways
fight.
here.
Okay, I want to give you some data, okay? According to an investigation led in 2013, most adult native English speakers have a vocabulary range of about 20,000, maximum 30,000 words, which they learn until middle age. But afterwards, they seem to stop, okay? So what do you think there is such a stop in learning, and why people become lazy when it comes to learning new words?
Do they though? I mean, they just use the ones that they need. I mean, once you grow older, you are confined to a certain kind of environment or a certain relation, so you don't need to learn more. I guess I don't know. I'm not
Do you
familiar
learn
with
a
those
lot
data.
of new words?
All the time, and I would like to answer your previous point. You said, why are people getting lazy about learning words? And it's like, if whatever trends or currencies allow them, sorry, not currencies, if whatever trends, market trends allow them, people get lazy about almost anything. We've all noticed the phenomena in recent years that people have begun to go around on 2 wheels on either side of their foot as opposed to walking, as opposed to actually walking. That's what people will do if a market trend allows them to do it. And just like you said, like your blogs and things like that, like a million
media.
bazillion amateur writers posting up 200-word articles to update people on news, as opposed to actual,
But who's to say-
let me finish, as opposed to actual journal. Hey, it's better than telling you shut up now, come on. I mean, I might have given a 16-year-old answer
Okay,
there. I think
guys,
that was
don't
pretty
be
good.
rude, of course, no? We need to be kind.
Well,
Yeah,
do we?
only one of us is telling the other to shut up. Marcella, you
All
know
right,
what?
what's the latest word you've learned?
The latest word
A new
I
word
learned.
that you learned.
I learned a word called kermuffin the other day.
What does it mean?
I read it in a Cormac McCarthy book, and he was just one character referring to the other character as a bit of an idiot, and he called him bloody kermuffin. I thought it was a great word. I thought it was nice. Yeah, I like that word.
Well, today this is a hot subject, I see, but I'm not convinced who is right and who's wrong. I need more arguments to decide.
All right. Well, let's turn to the nation of the United States of America right now, because I also said one of my points was the spoken word was the other currency of language, and that has in turn been devalued so much. Now, say what you like about Donald Trump, whether you love him or hate him. I'm not going to mention it on this show, my opinion of him, but you could never argue that he's a well-spoken man. You could never argue that he is a well-spoken man, right? And that man used the power of blithering idiocy, unfinished sentences, to shoot to the most powerful seat in the world. Now, it was done democratically. People voted that in. That's how little people value what was once one of the 2 peaks of language, the spoken word. Look at older presidents, even Bill Clinton was a very well-spoken man, great public speaker. Barack Obama, great public speaker. All of a sudden, and even if
both of them would use neologisms all the time, and they would get into the language that was used in social media and by younger people and by people. Like, the glory of English language really is that it doesn't have an academy,
But they could
like
speak it.
like Spanish does, for example, or the French language does. So it's very pliable. And it's playful, and you can invent words. And who's to say where the next Shakespeare is going to be? So Why not?
What
Why
I'm
cannot
saying-
we play with words? Time only will tell when and what stays and what becomes part of our vocabulary. But if we don't keep inventing words, if we don't keep playing with the language,
I'm not
that's
saying
never
we
going to
should
happen.
stop inventing words. All I'm saying, you keep bringing up Shakespeare. Yeah, Shakespeare was
Shakespeare and
listen to me,
Broderick
please.
and
Shakespeare
whoever.
was a genius, invented hundreds of words, but you're suggesting that language is currently evolving, and I'm saying that with the current trend, particularly when it comes to spoken words and politicians, the next presidential candidate in whatever country might as well go up on stage and get some signs and go, sad face emoji, money emoji.
Only if he's an idiot.
Happy face emoji. Yeah,
Only
but
if he's
people,
an
but the
idiot.
way things are going with language, people have already responded to Donald Trump. Things are only going to continue going in the direction which you seem to think
More
is
people
evolving.
voted-
I think it's
More
devolving.
people voted for Hillary Clinton than Donald
That's the
Trump.
electoral vote.
That's the electoral vote.
Yes,
I
the
know,
electoral
but
college
that's what
vote.
I'm saying, that people, a lot of
John
people
F. Kennedy
didn't-
got voted in that way,
Now
as
you
did
listen to
Abraham
me.
Lincoln, the two greatest
Now
US
you
presidents in
listen to
history.
me. So, like a lot of people, like half of the population in the United States, appreciated what language was, in the words of Hillary Clinton. So it's not like everybody.
Are you saying she was well spoken too?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. She was well spoken, but she also used like good language and new words and everything that was available to her to make her point. And that's what
enough.
I'm saying.
Time's up. Well, before you actually attack each other, I think it's better to
It
stop
might happen.
here. I know, that's why we better stop. Anyway, thank you both.
Thank you.
Donica, I'm with Patricia today, if you don't mind. But next time, you have another chance.
Fair enough.
Well, thank you for coming anyway. Thank you, Patricia. Thank you, Donica, and see you next time. Let's take a short break while we are away, and as today's main issue is language, I suggest you think about these words of Charlemagne, the first emperor of the Holy Roman Empire. You'll be back in a few minutes. Some artists need very little to fill a stage. A beautiful smile, a guitar and a great voice. These are the most important tools of our next guest. She was born in London. Her mother is Jamaican, her father is German, and she is currently living in Barcelona. Let's see how all those languages have influenced her. Gigi MacFarlane, welcome to the Weekly Mag.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you here. First of all, because today we talk about languages in this program, MacFarlane. What does it come from, this surname?
Well, MacFarlane is my mother's surname, and well, she's from the Caribbean, and you got many Macs. Well, there are not many MacFarlanes, you know, so that's why we always say that all the MacFarlanes are actually related, because like a clan.
Excellent.
And yeah, I suppose, well, all the Macs, you know, they used to come from Wales, Ireland, so I think when all the pirate thing going and all that, so.
So how many languages do you speak?
Not many, even though I'm such a big mix or whatever. I just speak English and Spanish. English, my mother tongue, and Spanish, well, I'm Catalan. You know, I grew up in Menorca, so I can do a Menorquin from time to time.
Well, let's talk about yourself as a singer, which is why you're here, actually. We've got here your first album, very beautiful cover. It's called Power Acoustic, yes? And you're wearing these lovely earrings as well, no? You bought them today as well. Do they mean anything for you?
Well, it's actually the look that I want for this album. So every time I'm on the stage and I do my own songs and stuff, then I like to wear them just so they remember me because of the earrings. They won't remember my face, but they remember the earrings.
Well, they are very powerful indeed. Well, anyway, if you had to describe your album in just a few words, what would you say?
Well, I think I'm a very independent person. That's why I did it all on my own. And I wanted the first album to be pure, just me. So people see what I really am. This is me, transparent. I got no more to give. And well, if I work on this next album, then I think I would do like with a band and all that. But as first presentation to like the world, I want to show them what's just me.
I see. You use the word power, yes? Power, and I know energy is also very important to you. Why is that?
Yes. Well, I think I just grew up that way, you know. Like the more energy you got, the more alive you are.
Well, you are, or used to be an illustrator. Yes, and now you do music. When did you decide actually to go for this change in your life, for music, from drawing to music?
Actually, it's not a change. I'm still doing both. I'm actually preparing an exhibition now for Almeria.
It's good.
Yeah, so I'm still doing both, actually.
So you've always done music and drawing?
No, I've always been more into drawing. Actually, it's what I studied.
And music came later?
Music came after, yeah. They started like 5 years ago. I went into music, but I went in really quick, and so everything happened very fast. So I was like full-time music, and now of late I'm like missing painting and all that. So I'm getting back into it again. And yes, I've sold some pictures not long ago, so I'm back into it again. I'm like trying to balance the time between both.
So when you say drawing, what do you draw?
I mostly draw women's body. I'm always into that. I think it's very dynamic, and I think it's just beautiful.
Just drawing, also designing stuff like drawing. Are you wearing anything today which is designed or created by yourself?
I actually used to do jewelry, so I did make this one.
A butterfly, very beautiful.
That's years ago. I don't do jewelry anymore. That's
okay.
From the past.
Let's continue talking about your music. You sing in big orchestras, small bands, or in acoustic format. So, what difference does it make for you? I mean, in terms of format and in terms of the experience you've got in these different formats.
Sometimes people ask me what do I prefer, but I just love all the formats. But it's different energy. I know, because when I'm with, it depends on, like, when you rehearse with people as well, like you get to a certain point that you have to do it all together, you know, it's like teamwork. But when I'm by myself, the magic is different, because it's just like me. I can close my eyes, I don't have to like indicate anything to anybody, you know, it's just me and I do whatever I want. The song can be as long as I want, as short as I want. You know, so it's like different energy. I like both, or whichever.
What about your collaboration with this Madrid rapper called El Cojín? How did it start?
Choyin.
El Choyin.
Yes.
El Choyin. Okay, so El Choyin.
It's weird how it started, because I actually didn't know who he was, and who he still is. I didn't know by the time. And I just saw a post of him, because he does like many posts when he's just talking himself at his home and just like talking, like giving messages, you know. And a friend of mine reposted what he was talking about. I was like, wow, this guy got a nice voice, deep voice, strong. And I normally don't do this, but I sent a message to him on Facebook. I'm like, yeah, boy, I love your voice. You should actually do something with your voice. And he answered and said, oh, I was looking at your stuff too. Yeah, we could do something together. Come to Madrid. And I'm like, all right. So I just went to Madrid, and then I saw all the stuff he does. I'm like, yeah, he got like 15 albums out. I'm like, wow, he got a Guinness record and all that. I was like, who are you? So he just went for lunch. It was like 15 minutes walking. Everybody stopped him, like taking pictures. I'm like,
really?
I'm like, you Madonna, who are you? I didn't even know. Yeah, and then after we actually posted what we did on the internet, and everybody's like, and my battery on my phone ran out. I was like, what is going on? I didn't know he was so famous. He's so famous. I was like, all right. I didn't know. Because you see, I'm in my own little world. I don't know what's going on.
What are you working on at the moment?
Right now, actually, I started writing some new songs, which is going to be for my next album, but that will take some time, because I still want to promote this one.
I see.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit more about this one. What does it include? Of songs, or just highlight a few songs from this album, from Power Acoustic. If you had to highlight a few, 2 or 3, which ones would you choose?
Right, Power, of course, is like the song that, well, whenever I show the album to people, everybody's like, oh, I like this one, Power, Power. It was after Power all the time. And that one I actually wrote for a very important person in my life, that he actually gives me the power. But we're like so close together, sometimes the power crashes, you know. It burns.
I see. And today you're going to perform a song for us. What's the name of the song?
Power.
Okay. And give us more details about this song. You said it's for a special person in your life.
Well, it just talks about that sometimes that the power is so big that we actually burn ourselves, you know.
Excellent. Well, looking forward to listening to it. Thank you so much, Gigi, for coming.
Thank you.
And while Gigi is getting ready, we're going back to the question of language. At some point in the program, we've mentioned false friends, those words that are similar in two languages but mean very different things. And Professor Becca Bardaka tells us more about these words. Stay tuned.
Hi everyone! Today we're going to be looking at some adjectives and some words that Catalan speakers often confuse, more commonly known as false friends. The first one we're going to have a look at is actual and current. Now, actual is not an adjective to describe a fact or an object of the current moment, but something real. For example, the number of people at the conference was expected to be 600, but the actual one was much lower. The second pair of words that people confuse is carpet and folder. Now, a carpet is a piece of material or fabric that we put on our floors in our houses to keep it warm, whereas a folder is where we put papers, which kind of leads me to fabric and factory. Now, fabric is the material like this that we use to make clothes or curtains or anything else, whereas a factory is the place where they're made. Now, of course, accidents can happen in a factory, which leads to casualty and coincidence. A casualty is an accident or a victim of an accident, whereas a coincidence is an occasion where something happened or some similar things happen at the same time randomly. It's also important not to mix exit and success. Exit or unexit is the act of leaving a place or the doorway from which we leave the place. Whereas success is when you manage to achieve something that you've been trying to do for a really long time. So the test was a success, I passed, yes. Coming up next, we have library and bookstore. Now, a library is a place where we borrow books, so at the end of the day, we have to return them, whereas you buy or purchase books at a bookstore. Our last one is introduce and insert. Now, the act of introducing someone to someone else is literally arranging for them to meet, whereas insert is the action of putting something into something else. So you could insert a coin into a parking meter. That's it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks.
giving me power. You're giving me power. Oh, yes. Oh, just now that we're burning, 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 burning. Now we're so hot, hot, hot. So hot, hot, hot. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. You're giving me the bounce, the fire, the world's desire to take my wings and fly up to the sky.
There is something about trains that makes them fascinating for many people. They are fast, they allow you to travel comfortably, and they are, or are supposed to be, punctual. That's why Paul Balieu, a language teacher who's been living in Vilanova i la Geltrú for the past 20 years, loves to visit the Railway Museum. Have a look at our Home from Home section.
This is the wonderful Catalonia Railway Museum. My name is Paul Balieu. I remember the first time very well that I discovered this little treasure in Vilanova. I was traveling every day by train from Vilanova to Barcelona for my work, and one day I saw a building that I always thought, what would be behind the walls? And that day the gate was open and I entered and I said, wow, what's this? This is really amazing. People love everything related to trains. You can see it when people enter here, especially the fathers that pretend to go to show their children, but actually they want to be here. They become like little children again, and it's great to see all the history of trains. So you can see from the very first train, this was in 1848 when the first railway was built in Spain from Mataró to Barcelona. So you can see still that locomotive here, which is very impressive, and so on, the different years, different styles of traveling by train. And it's not only the trains itself. There's a nice library inside with lots of documentation, photos, books about the history of this place in general, because Vilanova doesn't have only a museum, but it was one of the most important maintenance workshops of Renfe, and still today one of the major workshops here is still in place, still working. So Vilanova and trains has been always a very important combination, and still today it is. People probably are aware of the museum, but sometimes maybe not enough to realize this is really important, a very unique place that we have in Vilanova. Sometimes, you know, you don't recognize things you have just at hand, but I think this place is quite unique, very fascinating, and probably when people discover this place, will come back many times to enjoy this sensation of living old times and touching and feeling one moment like the train conductor, or it's very, very nice.
Matthew Tree and Marc Broderick are ready to test Marcella's patience. In a few moments, you are going to check it out.
We are back, and this is the last part of the show in which we usually end up with a good laugh with our mates Marc Broderick and Matthew Tree. But before that, we invite you to have a look at some phrasal verbs with our teacher Tim Guinea from International House, Barcelona. I think he likes to party quite a lot. Check it out.
Hi, we've been talking about tips how to improve your English, and one way is of course to watch these videos. Another way is to get together with people so that you meet up with them and practice your language. And actually getting together with people is something that I long for. And if you long for something, you have a strong desire to do it. Now, when I get together with people, I like to host a party, and let me tell you, my parties are legendary. You can't miss out on them. So if you miss out on something, you missed it, you skip it, you're unable to attend. Now, my parties weren't always like that, and I have learnt my lesson from the past. At the beginning of moving here to Barcelona, I invited people to my house, and there was one colleague of mine that I knew, and he was a bit of a strange guy, and I was advised against inviting him. So if you advise against something, you tell someone not to do it. But I slipped up. Slipped up means to make a mistake, and I invited him by accident. So he came to the party, and what I feared actually came true. He started making fun of my other guests. So I have a female friend, she's got quite big ears, and he made fun of her and called her big ears, and it wasn't very nice. So we told him to give it a rest. If you tell someone to give it a rest, you're ordering them to stop doing it. And thankfully he did, so in the end we scraped through, so we just managed to have a good time and enjoy ourselves. So the next time that I have a party, I'll make sure that I invite you. So until the next time, I'll see you.
Well, here we are, and the time has come for comparisons, and our specialists in this field are an Irishman and an Englishman, Marc Broderick and Matthew Tree. Welcome.
Thank you. Almost sounds like a joke, an Irishman and an Englishman begin a conversation about something, no?
Yeah. Well, about language in this case. Language is important for you both. Matthew, in your case, you're a writer, as we all know, and Marc, you're also an English teacher.
I'm an English teacher, exactly, yeah.
Okay, so to start with, how many languages do you speak?
Matthew, you start.
Yes, I speak 4. Like 4 I
Not
can
bad.
honestly say I speak, and then there's sort of passive knowledge of 3 others.
Which are?
Portuguese, Italian and French.
Wow.
So if I go to those countries after a day or two, I can more or less understand what's going on and order a...
And Dutch? You're fluent in Dutch?
I'm fairly fluent in Dutch, yeah, because my partner's Dutch, but I've never lived in Holland, ever. I mean, I spend about 2 weeks a year in Holland, so it's taken me 27 years to learn Dutch. You know, it took me a while.
Slowly but surely, Matthew, slowly but surely.
Because I don't like classrooms, so I'm self-taught in all 4 languages except English, because I was brought up in London. Yeah.
Okay, and you, Marc?
I don't like classrooms either, even though I'm a teacher, but yeah. I could say I speak 3 fluently. I speak also 2 others like French and Irish, because in Ireland we have to learn Gaelic growing up. I guess if I went to Ireland and stayed in a town that spoke Irish, it would come back to me pretty fast. Yeah, so 5, not as much as you, Matthew.
Okay, I take it for true, no? What you said about Gaelic?
Yeah, Yeah. In Ireland, when you grow up, like you have to spend, I think it's about 15, 16 years of your life, you have to learn Irish. You have to study Irish literature, poetry, dance, music, etc. But by the time you hit university, most people have forgotten it because, well, unless you continue in education or into politics, I believe, that most people speak
So
it
you
then.
would say it's rather difficult, no, to learn?
To learn Irish.
Learn and
It's a Germanic language, so I mean, it's not like Basque where it has absolutely no roots at all. So it comes from the Germanic strain of languages, so it's not too bad. We speak English, it's not too bad.
So where did you go to shoot the video this week?
The Autonomo, Universidad Autónoma de Barcelona. Yeah, we asked
Universitat Autónoma.
Yeah, we
okay.
asked some of the future translators which languages were the most difficult ones to learn. That's it. You'll see.
Okay, interesting.
Yep.
Let's see.
Today we're going to talk about languages, and no better place to talk about languages than here in Belleterra at the Faculty of Translation and Interpretation. Let's go talk to the future translators of tomorrow. Okay, what's the most difficult language to learn and why?
Probably Chinese. It's very difficult. You don't have anything to rely on. I mean, coming from a Latin language.
I think German. Words are very long.
But aren't you studying Japanese?
Yeah, but I think it's easier.
Definitely Chinese because of the different accents and the tones. There's like 4 tones, and it's my second year here, and I don't even know how to do it yet.
In my case, it's Japanese. You need to change your way of thinking.
Until now, I have learned 3 languages, and for me, maybe Spanish is the most difficult one.
I think it is certainly Chinese.
Maybe Chinese.
Why?
Because they have like thousands and thousands of letters you need to learn in order to function.
German and Chinese are the ones that are the most difficult ones. Chinese has the thing with the tones, but German is with the grammar. It's insane. You have to know exactly how you're gonna write it, and it's not spelled the same as you write it, so it's a kind of difficult as well.
For me, I think it's French. When you read it, it's not that difficult. But for example, to talk, I think because I lived in France, so when I was there, the most difficulty was to understand and talk about it. You know.
Ni hao, konnichiwa, buongiorno, bom dia, bonjour, hello.
Which country speaks the best English, or the one that you understand the best, like native?
I think that here in Spain we're taught a lot of British English.
British is the easiest.
American. I see YouTube and videos that are in American accent.
England and America, I have to say, America is a bit kind of different because I think the accent you can know better what it means, and British you really have to listen to it because the tone is really different, I think so.
Some parts of England or United States, but at the same time, in these countries, it's like the most difficult English to understand.
What about the Irish accent?
No, that's fucked up. That's not okay.
I'm Irish, you know that, right? And you understand me.
Yeah, I do, but you're talking like softly, slowly.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, well, not bad, no?
No, it was good fun. And it was curious that nobody said the Irish accent, which in fact they say, or some people say, that the best spoken English is actually from Dublin, from D4. I read that somewhere recently. Yeah.
Like, what does that mean? That it's the easiest to understand?
I think it's the best pronounced. It's like when you learn Spanish. When I learned Spanish at university, they always told me the people in Valladolid or the people in Salamanca, that area, they speak Spanish that's very pure. Let's say it doesn't have that like thick accent like an Argentinian or a Mexican or a person from Andalusia. No, I think that's what they tried to say.
Okay.
So I was shocked.
Which is like in Catalan, it's Beak. Everybody told me in Beak they speak the best Catalan.
Well, I lived close to there for 7 years and I learned it. So yeah, it's pretty thick though. It's like that real country accent, you know.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
So where did you go to learn Catalan, Matthew?
The
first time?
I went to a village.
And it was near
It's a pity our paths never crossed before.
And at that time, I mean, this is at the end of the 70s, and there were no classes for adults. There were no Catalan classes for adults. But there was a book called Teach Yourself Catalan that had just come out 2 months before, and it was like, for me, it was like a miracle because I was sure I was the only person in the whole of Great Britain who wanted to learn Catalan. So I got hold of this book and then practiced every day for 6 months with the people in the village. And like the learning curve was so steep and it was all so intense that after 6 months I was in fact speaking quite fluent Catalan and reading in it and starting even to write in it a very little. But it was just so intense. I used to get so frustrated and angry every day because you get to that point where suddenly your Catalan runs out. I mean, this happens with every language. It just runs out and you can't continue the conversation and you just sit there and steam. You know?
Yeah, at the beginning it's not easy, but you need to keep on trying and not be afraid of making mistakes, I think. I remember when I was learning Catalan, at a certain point I had to write a postcard, and instead of una abrazada, I wrote una embarazada. Because, you know,
You're truly a pregnant woman.
Yeah, anyway, but these things happen when you learn a language, and it's good fun actually.
The first time I went to buy a chicken breast in Spanish in Logroño, I can tell you, well, I don't know, I said, can I have una pechuga de polla instead of pollo, and the whole butcher shop just started laughing. You know, it was my first time to go to buy
well, this could
chicken
only happen to Marc, of course.
No, it never happened again, I'll tell you that much.
Well, tell me about your Catalan, Marc. Where did you learn it and how?
I pretty much similar to Matthew. I lived in a small village and I spoke Spanish obviously when I arrived, but then I realized that if I spoke Catalan, things were easier. And I was in a lot of situations at dinner tables, for example. The typical, you go out for dinner on a Saturday night and there's 15 people having conversations about different things, from sports to politics to the weather to etc. And you kind of, in order to partake in the conversations and to feel part of the group, you kind of have to make the effort, no? If not, you feel like a little bit of an outsider. So I really made an effort in listening and watching. I didn't read. I cannot read or write in Catalan, but I can speak it quite well, I think, and I can understand it pretty much 100%. So I learned it myself, yeah.
Well
it was
done.
more out of necessity, and it has opened a lot of doors for me, which is great. So.
Well, I thought you decided to learn Catalan in order to discover the wonderful culture and tradition.
It was
of the country,
for the beautiful women here, basically, is why I learned it. You either learn a language for love or for money, you know? And in this case, I guess, for both. In this case, and you love money? No, just pure and utter.
Yeah, why did I learn Catalan? Because I had to choose. I didn't have any Spanish. So I was in this village where 90% of the population spoke Catalan.
What's the name of the village?
I'm not going to say the name of the village because it's.
You'll tell me later. You'll tell me later.
I'll tell you afterwards.
Okay, fair enough.
But like there were two factors. One was that the only people who insisted that I learn Spanish and only Spanish were the local fascists. I mean, a man who carried a gun and went around with a Spanish flag everywhere, who was a Catalan, by the way, but I mean, he said, no, don't bother with Catalan, it's not important. And a Dutchman, funnily enough, who, the only phrase he used to say in Catalan, he was married to a Catalan woman in a completely Catalan-speaking family, refused to learn the language except for one sentence, which is, el català és lleig. Catalan is an ugly language, which he thought was very funny and expected everyone to laugh, you know, which they didn't.
Well, for me, I think it's actually a matter of basic respect. No? If you go and live in a country, I think it's very important to learn the language that is spoken there. No?
Absolutely.
Well, funnily enough, it was Catalan that taught me that all languages are important, you know, because I came from London speaking English, you know, with that kind of natural arrogance that comes with all that. And it was when I learnt Catalan and realized, oh wow, this is actually quite important. You know, it's got its literature, it's got all these people speaking it. And so now, every time when I go to a foreign country, even if I just go for a week, I just try and learn a few words of the language.
I think you understand them better as well. You understand how they work, you understand how they think a little bit more. And I think the next video, if you see, I asked the people this, no, like, does it change the way you think when you speak in another language? Do you become more punctual if you speak German? Do you become angrier if you speak in Japanese? I don't know. You know.
Oh, that sounds interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's watch it.
Because you speak 5 languages, does it change the way that you think when you speak another language?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, it might sound like crazy, but when I think in another language, it's like another me, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I read as well an article that it's about, like, as more languages you speak, as more personalities you can develop. And I think as well that if I speak German, I really get like a German. I have to be punctual, I have to be polite, and if I'm Spanish, fuck it, I do it tomorrow, you know?
No.
So you're the same person no matter what language you speak?
Yes, of course.
Because I'm half Japanese too, like my way of thinking, like for example, when I speak with someone through the phone, I always bow, like doing this.
In Japanese, mainly because it's very formal and informal, and you learn how to respect people.
So do you respect people more?
Yeah.
Well, interesting conversation, no?
Yeah, the one about the Japanese having more respect and the German being more punctual, and even you saw one kid who said when he was talking on the phone in Japanese, he would move his head like this, you know? You can imagine the Italians on the phone going like this, and
but back
very
in,
expressive,
back in
you
the
know?
1980s, there were complaints from Japanese users of phone booths because they were too small, so that when they bowed, they kept hitting their heads against the side of the phone booth. And that was a news item in the 1980s, before mobiles. You know?
That is brilliant. I would love to have seen that, no? The little red boots in London, or like Japanese guys banging their head off the window.
And the guy who said that when he speaks another language, it's like, it's another me, he said.
Yeah, it's like you have different personalities.
Yeah?
No? I find
Does
that
that happen
sometimes
to you?
It,
Really?
it does, yeah. I mean, I speak English most of the day. I actually speak the 3 languages equal amounts during the whole day, and I do change a little bit in how I speak to the children, or if I'm speaking to parents, I speak to them in Catalan. I find it very good for giving directions and very direct, you know. Whereas Spanish is a little bit more like, you know, getting to the topic, but very slowly, you know. I find Catalan a little bit more direct, for me, the way that I use it.
Okay.
Do you find the...
No, in fact, what you were doing when you were speaking is exactly what I found I was doing after I learned Catalan, which is I gesticulate a lot more.
Yeah.
Really?
And I do it also when I speak English, you know. I'm always waving my hands about and stuff, which I never used to do before learning Catalan.
True, actually, yeah, I never thought of that.
Interesting.
I do that with Spanish as well. Seems to
What
go
about
with it.
dreams? What language do you dream in? In English or Catalan, Spanish?
I'll tell you, it depends. If it's an action and adventure, it's in English. If it's
Wait, now Marc
a
starts
wet
with
dream,
his
it's in Spanish.
ideas. If it's, sorry?
If it's a wet dream, it's Spanish.
Oh,
because I have to say, Spanish has that very, you know, lovely sound to it, depending on where it comes from, no? And in Catalan, I dream a lot about work in Catalan. And you?
Terrible.
I think he just made this all up.
No,
You just
I
made
don't.
it up, no?
I didn't. I was prepared for that question. I'm always prepared for these questions.
Okay, so you made it up before.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, it wasn't improvised.
And you?
No, in dreams, it depends on who I'm talking to. In the dream, it's as simple as that. Just like in real life, you know.
When I'm in your dreams, Matthew, what do we talk?
English.
Nice to know I'm in your dreams.
All right. Well, anyway, many people study English here in Catalonia, no? What's the situation in the UK? And people in the UK study a lot of languages and speak a lot of languages?
No, 62% of people in the UK only speak English, which is pretty high. You know, that means 38% speak one other language, and only 6% speak 3 languages or more. And like, having said which, we also have to remember that in England there are also people who are brought up bilingual or trilingual because their families are from different countries. So in fact, the fact that 62% of people in England only speak English is, well, doesn't, you know, that's a lot of monolingual speakers.
Why do you think that happens?
Because everyone else on the planet is trying to learn English. So they have this impression that they can go anywhere and speak English, as in fact does almost everybody. I see tourists from all over the world in Catalonia speaking English automatically, you know, because they assume that everybody's going to speak English.
Okay.
It's interesting you said that. I read a report as well. I did my own research on this one. That in Croydon in London there are 100 languages spoken just in Croydon, and that 50% of the population is like from about. And I was like, wow, that's like 100 different languages in such a small area. I don't know Croydon. I've never been there, but I imagine then that those statistics is the rest of England. No, yeah, I'm probably not missing much. Exactly. I have some interesting expressions in other languages, which I found during the week as well, and they're very, very specific. I thought they were very funny. Now you're going to laugh at my pronunciation of these languages, okay? This is not the objective, all right?
Or not, maybe we'll cry.
Or maybe you'll be very impressed at my ability. So the first one is a German one. It's called Weltschmerz, okay? And it literally means, like, you know, you have a headache or a stomach ache. The Germans have a word for when the world hurts you. When you are in despair, no? It's very world weariness, you might call it. I thought it was quite funny. Another one which you might enjoy, which is Dutch. Now, excuse my pronunciation, Matthew. Meid iemand in de koffer duiken.
Well, I know what it means because you told me before the program started to jump into the cupboard.
It's jump in the suitcase.
The suitcase.
In English, we say a roll in the hay. A roll in the hay, you know, a little bit of hanky-panky. But the Dutch use the expression, let's jump in the suitcase for a naughty weekend away.
Okay, brilliant. Well, but Mark, let's go to the following video, and then if we have time, you can tell us more of these wonderful expressions.
No problem.
What's the third video about?
The third video is my personal favorite, bad language, which swear words you can say in other languages.
I was wondering about that,
yeah,
because
you were waiting for it.
I was surprised that you haven't brought it up before.
Well, there you go.
Okay, let's see.
Can you tell me any swear words in another language?
Baka. It's Japanese and it's like dumb.
In another language, for example, Russian?
I think the most popular one is certainly blять. It means like, oh, damn, like...
Oh shit.
Yeah, basically that.
Can you give me any swear words in Chinese?
Hooligan is bitch.
What was the first swear words you learned in French?
Connard, like imbecile, I guess.
Imbecile?
Yeah.
Can you give me some swear words in German?
Fick dich und Wichser.
Wichser? What's that?
Wichser is, it's the guy that always has to touch himself the whole day. Yeah, we got really specific words.
Blimey.
Blimey. Okay, that one's for you, Matthew. Can you tell me any swear words or bad words in Arabic?
Himar.
Hey Mark. Sounds like hey Mark. What does it mean?
Burro.
Donkey. Hey Mark. Okay, good.
Wow, nice, no?
Yeah, well, bad language. In fact, it's the hardest thing of any language to learn is the bad language or the swear words. Yeah, because it's very difficult to use them at the right moment and at the right point and with the right emphasis.
Okay, yes. I think it's not the case for Mark.
No, not in my case. I use an awful amount of bad language. In fact, when I was driving back from the airport once with a friend of mine who was from Manchester, and he had my parents in the back of the car, and my parents also used quite an extensive amount of flowery language. And he got out of the car and he turned around to me and goes, "My ears are burning. I've never heard the word fuck so many times in a small space of time." So we do, in Ireland, we're renowned for it. We do use very bad language, yeah.
Mm-hmm. You have a small obsession for these
yeah,
words.
maybe. We like to stand out a little bit.
Yeah, what I found here was so surprising was the habit of crapping on everything. Em cago en Deo, em cago en Dena, em cago en Lo. You know, I shit on the egg. Yeah, and you hear people saying this. And like now, of course, I say it as if it was the most natural thing in the world.
You should try and say that in the UK.
Just go
in the UK.
Yes.
I can just, yes, you're sitting there in the pub and everything with your friends and go, oh, I shit on the egg.
The pickled egg.
The pickled egg.
Okay.
The one they serve. Yeah.
All right. Well, anyway, what about polysemic words? There are lots of words like that in England, in English, I mean, and in Catalan. Give me an example. Okay.
Yeah, get would be like an example. Get,
exactly.
Which means so many things.
But actually they say that there is this word that has up to 645 meanings in English, and it's not get, it's run.
Wow.
Run.
Run? Wow. Run off, run out of. I guess if you add it to lots of things, it has, there you go. Learn something new.
Okay.
To run a restaurant, to run a race.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Fouet in
Mhm.
Catalan. Okay. How many meanings do you think this word has?
Fouet.
Fouet. I would say just two. It can mean a whip, or it can mean a type of charcuterie, a type of sausage.
I would say
cold
three and add
sausage.
another one onto that. I'm not going to say it.
Okay, don't say it. I asked you that because it has a lot to do with our next section,
Okay.
with our first timer section. We are going to see our colleague from Lleida TV, Joan Cama, who travels to Vic. To Vic.
To Vic.
Where Bazia Siwik not only tastes his fouet for the first time, but she also learns the process of making it. And it turns out that it reminds her about her childhood in Poland. Well, have a look and you'll see why.
Hey guys, we are in Vic, in Ozona, and since we came here, we couldn't do anything better than surprise Basia. Hi Basia.
Hi, John.
You're from Poland, right?
Yes, I'm from Poland. Hi.
Do you know what fouet is?
I have no idea what's what.
Okay, take a look. Come here. This is fouet. Are you vegetarian?
No, I'm not, and you're lucky. I'm a personal trainer, fitness instructor, and nutrition advisor. And I came here to have an experience with fresh local food, which I recommend anyway to everyone. So the more fresh you go, the better it is for you, for your health and well-being. And here I am, guys. So let's see how it goes and how it went with my new experience today.
Okay, so Basia, our teacher today will be Santi. Hey Santi, nice to meet you.
Hi, good morning.
This is Basia. She's from Poland and she's ready to make some fouet.
Looks nice, looks tasty.
It looks tasty. So you will dare to try it?
Of course I will. Yeah, I'm happy to try your traditional food.
So Santi, here we have the pictures of the first, the second, and the third generation. You're the sixth. You've been working since 1837. Let's get started now. So this is pork meat, salt, and pepper. Oh yeah, we should play basket. Let's try it.
I couldn't throw it.
Don't throw it, don't throw it. Well done, well done, well done. That's a good beginning. That's a good beginning.
My grandfather was a butcher, so now I will have the experience from the kitchen.
That's so emotional.
Of course, I was eating meat. I was always into fresh, homemade pork, sausage, ham. My grandfather used to do, but I never wanted to help him. Yeah, but then now I'm here. I had an experience to do it, and once I saw all those machines and the owner of the place, the chef, he showed us how to do it, and then it just came to my head that my grandfather used to do this all his life, and he liked it. So, yeah.
Stop.
I'm holding, yeah? Because
Just a moment. Okay.
see?
Okay.
Or no?
You can take it out.
Yeah, but
No.
doesn't matter.
This one?
Not so easy after all. My first wet. It's good. I like it. I think it's nice. It's not too spicy. It's mild. And to be honest with you, in Poland, where I come from, we have, well, not fouet, but sausage. And we make this kind of meat for a barbecues with family, so it's similar taste, but not obviously not the same. But yeah, so I'm familiar with this meat, but this is amazing. And you know, as the foreigner in Barcelona or in other countries, I like to experience the local food because what's the joy of coming somewhere without being curious of what they have offered, yeah.
Well done. Thank you, Joanne, and very nice work. What about you guys? Fouet is on your list of favorite foods?
If we're talking about sausages, which we obviously are, I prefer something called Lunganisa, which is like fouet, only a bit thicker. Sorry, Marc is in hysterics here.
I'm sorry.
Lunganisa is, that's only in east of Barcelona, west of Barcelona. Lunganisa
de Vic. It's a very famous
we're
product
back,
of
we're
Vic
back to,
again.
We're back,
We're
to,
back
Vic.
to Vic again. It's
Yeah,
the home of the sausages.
but it's typical also of.
You know what I
the
find
whole
funny
Girona
about here?
area.
In Ireland growing up, right? You know the traditional Irish breakfast, and of course the English breakfast
I'm
comes
not
with...
sure I want to find out.
No, it's quite interesting. It comes with sausage, but it's always the same sausage. It's never any different, you know?
Is it
and then
pork
when
sausage in Ireland?
Sorry, it's pork.
sausage,
Exactly,
yeah.
yes, pork. So when I came here, I was shocked at the amount of sausages there was. It's like they have a huge variety of different tastes, different textures, sizes, etc. I was, you know, did you find this when you moved here?
Yeah. And also the fact that the one I really like is Lunganisa, where they put a little bit of extra pepper into it. And that is delicious.
Spices up your life.
Okay, but have you ever tried to make fouet? I don't think so. But
No, I
like
haven't.
a typical Catalan product?
I think my fideuà is quite good. Yeah, I can make fideuà. I like cooking seafood.
We want to see that.
Someday I'll invite the whole crew and we'll have a big fideuà.
That's
yeah,
good.
look at them, they're all happy.
Yeah, you can put it in your agenda.
I'll put it in my agenda. At the end of the season, we'll have a fideuarada, no? You have a butifarrada where you have the sausages, the sausage party.
I've never heard.
Okay, we'll have a fideuà made by Marc. I can't wait. Well, what about you, Matthew?
Yeah, I've just forgotten the name. Those cakes that are made round about the 1st of November.
Oh, panellets.
Panellets, that's right. Well, in fact, there were two of us. We were trying to make panellets following this recipe. And what I got were these sort of horrible little things that were sort of like round circles with just a bit sticking up. And they were absolutely disgusting. I couldn't make them myself. So then we couldn't make them ourselves. So then I realized that actually all you have to do is go round to the nearest patisserie, just order them, and it's much easier like that.
Yes, which ones? Because there are different tastes.
The traditional ones with the pine nuts and made out of, funnily enough, potato is one of the
the sweet
main
potato they
ingredients.
use, right?
Yeah, these are my
potato.
favorite ones as well, with pine nuts.
Yeah,
delicious.
traditional ones.
I like the bunyols when it comes for up to Easter time with the cream inside them. Oh
Yeah,
man,
those are
they're so
delicious.
expensive though. I'm like, oh my god, how can you? I understand it takes a lot of time, but a big bag of those, I love them. Bunyols, yeah.
What's your favorite word in Catalan?
In Catalan.
Or English?
In English, nincompoop.
Oh, that's a great word.
Isn't it brilliant?
God,
My
why
mother
didn't
used
I
to call
think
me
of
a
that? For
nincompoop.
me, it's
is that?
rissole. A rissole is a kind of croqueta that's been trodden on. And in Catalan for me, it's a word I loved from the moment I first learned it. Is xiu-xiu-a-ja, to whisper.
I have to agree with you on that one. It's the one that I find the most difficult to pronounce, but it's also the funniest one.
Yeah.
When we played the telephone with the children and I have to explain to them, they all laugh when I make xiu-xiu-ja, and they're all like, they all start laughing because for me it's quite difficult to pronounce. So it's quite funny. In Spanish, I like the word chiringuito. Let's go to the chiringuito by the sea. No, it has that feeling of summer and like
I wonder why you like that word.
I like sitting on the beach, apart from when it's in the sun. I like to be under an umbrella, but yeah,
Sounds
chiringuito
good.
is pretty cool.
Sounds
yeah.
good.
I
Well,
like a lot.
thank you, Marc, very much
There you
for
go.
your great contribution to this program. And I'll see you next time.
Okay.
Matthew, see you next time.
See you next week.
Thank you both a lot. And that's all for now. It's been 2 very entertaining hours that we hope you enjoyed. You can keep in touch with the program on the net through @TheWeeklyMagTV. And our farewell quote is from the British novelist, philanthropist and film producer J.K. Rowling, best known for writing the Harry Potter fantasy series. She tells us that language is important, but attitude is more important. We'll be back next week. Meanwhile, keep your English up and running. See you next time.